My siblings planned a surprise party for Mom's milestone birthday, but forgot to invite me. When I showed up anyway, they said, "This is for close family only." I nodded and left, but not before reversing the $7,500 venue deposit in my name. The caterers left mid-setup, and chaos ensued. I, 34 am. Learn about my mother's surprise 60th birthday party the way nobody should learn about family gatherings. Through a Facebook event I wasn't invited to but could see because my cousin forgot to adjust her privacy settings. The notification popped up while I was having my morning coffee. A cheerful banner with balloons and confetti announced the celebration, scheduled for Saturday evening at the Meridian, an upscale venue downtown that I knew cost a fortune to book. My brother and 2 sisters were listed as hosts. 53 people had marked themselves as attending. I scrolled through the guest list and saw aunts, uncles, cousins I hadn't spoken to in years, even Mom's college roommate, who lived 3 states away. Everyone was invited. Everyone except me. I stared at my phone for a long time, that familiar hollow feeling spreading through my chest. This wasn't the first time they'd excluded me, but it stung worse because it was Mom. I'd always been the black sheep, the one who didn't quite fit the family mold. While my siblings pursued prestigious careers in medicine and law, I'd become a tradesman, a general contractor who worked with his hands. They never said it outright, but I could feel their judgment at every family gathering. The subtle condescension when they asked about my work, the way they'd changed the subject when I tried to contribute to conversations. The exclusion had gotten worse after Dad died 2 years ago. Somehow, in their grief, they'd decided I was the expendable one. Holiday dinners happened without me. Group chats existed that I wasn't part of. My calls to my siblings went unreturned for days, sometimes weeks. But this was different. This was Mom. I called my brother first. The phone rang 6 times before going to voicemail. I tried my older sister next, then the younger one. Both sent me to voicemail. The message was clear. They weren't just excluding me by accident. This was intentional. What they didn't know was that 3 months ago, Mom had asked me to help coordinate a venue for a family event. She'd been vague about the details, saying she wanted to have everyone together for something special. I'd spent hours researching places, negotiating rates, and finally secured the Meridian at a significant discount because I'd done construction work for the owner the previous year. Mom had been thrilled with the deal. She'd asked if I could put the deposit down on my credit card, and she'd pay me back $7,500. I'd agreed without hesitation because it was for her. Now I understood. This event wasn't vague at all. It was her own birthday party, and my siblings had taken over the planning. They'd probably convinced Mom to let them handle everything, assuring her they'd take care of all the details. And somewhere along the way, they decided those details didn't include me. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. That venue deposit was still in my name. The contract I'd signed listed me as the primary contact. I'd forwarded all the information to my older sister 6 weeks ago when Mom mentioned she was coordinating with them, but I'd never transferred the contract itself. The booking was still mine. I spent the next 2 days wrestling with what to do. Part of me wanted to just show up and endure whatever awkwardness followed. Part of me wanted to call Mom and tell her everything, expose my siblings for the excluding jerks they were. But something else was brewing inside me, something darker and more satisfying. Saturday arrived. I'd made my decision. I drove to the Meridian around 4 in the afternoon, 2 hours before the party was scheduled to start. The parking lot was already busy with catering vans and rental company trucks. I walked through the main entrance like I belonged there, because technically, I did. The ballroom was a hurricane of activity. White tablecloths were being smoothed over round tables. Flower arrangements were being positioned. A DJ was setting up equipment in the corner. And there, in the center of it all, stood my siblings, clipboards in hand, directing traffic like generals commanding an army. My older sister saw me first. Her face went from concentrated focus to shock to something resembling fear in the span of 2 seconds. She nudged my brother, who turned and spotted me. His jaw tightened. I walked straight toward them, keeping my expression neutral. My younger sister noticed the commotion and joined them, forming a united front. The 3 of them stood there, blocking my path as if I was an intruder rather than their brother. My older sister spoke first, her voice low and tense. She asked what I was doing there. I told her I'd come for Mom's party. I kept my tone pleasant, even friendly. My brother cut in, saying the party was a surprise and not everyone could be invited. He said it with that particular inflection he used when he wanted to sound reasonable while being completely unreasonable. I asked if they were seriously telling me I wasn't invited to my own mother's birthday party. My younger sister, always the most direct of the three, looked me straight in the eye and said this was for close family only. The words hung in the air between us, sharp and deliberate. Close family only. As if I wasn't close family. As if 34 years of being their brother, of sharing the same parents, the same childhood, the same blood, could be erased with one dismissive phrase. I felt something shift inside me. The hurt I'd been carrying transformed into crystal clear resolve. I nodded slowly and told them I understood. I could see the relief on their faces, the satisfaction that I was going to walk away without making a scene. They probably thought I'd slink back to my truck and drive home, nurse my wounds in private like I always did. Instead, I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. Right there, with the three of them watching, I initiated a stop payment on the venue deposit. $7,500. The transaction took less than 30 seconds. I looked up at my siblings and told them to enjoy their party. Then I turned and walked toward the venue manager's office. I'd worked with the manager before, a sharp woman who ran the venue with precise efficiency. She was in her office reviewing paperwork when I knocked. She greeted me warmly, remembering me from the initial booking. I explained the situation simply. There had been a family misunderstanding, and I needed to cancel the event. I apologized for the short notice. Her face shifted from friendly to professional concern. She pulled up the contract on her computer and confirmed that I was indeed the name on the booking. She asked if I was certain, because cancellations this late meant forfeiting the deposit. I told her I'd already stopped payment on it. She went quiet, her fingers hovering over her keyboard. After a moment, she nodded and said she'd have to shut down the setup. I thanked her and left. The walk back through the ballroom was surreal. My siblings were huddled together near the DJ booth, still oblivious. Catering staff were rolling in carts of appetizers. The florist was adding final touches to the centerpieces. It all looked perfect, like a magazine spread come to life. I made it to my truck and sat there for a moment, hands on the steering wheel, heart pounding. My phone started ringing almost immediately. My older sister. I declined the call. It rang again. My brother this time. Declined. Then my younger sister. Declined. I started the engine and drove home. Update 1. The calls didn't stop. Over the next hour, I received 23 calls and countless texts. I ignored all of them. Around 6:30, my phone rang with Mom's number. I hesitated, my finger hovering over the screen, then answered. Mom's voice was strained and confused. She asked where I was and what had happened. She said the venue manager had stopped everything and the party was falling apart. People were already arriving. The caterers had packed up and left. She sounded close to tears. I felt a twist of guilt, but I pushed through it. I asked her if she'd known I wasn't invited to her party. There was a long silence on the other end. When she finally spoke, she said my siblings told her I was busy with a big project and couldn't make it. They'd said they'd checked with me and I'd declined. They'd lied to her. They'd orchestrated the entire exclusion and covered their tracks with a fabricated story. I told her the truth. I explained how I'd found out about the party, how I'd tried to reach out to my siblings, how they'd ignored me. I described showing up at the venue and being told it was for close family only. My voice stayed steady as I talked, but I could feel the emotion building behind every word. Mom went silent again. I could hear voices in the background, chaos and confusion. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. It was harder, colder. She said she needed to talk to my siblings and would call me back. She didn't call back that night. The next morning, I woke to a text from my older sister. It was long and angry, accusing me of ruining Mom's birthday, of being petty and vindictive, of embarrassing the entire family. She said I'd always been jealous of their success, and this was my way of lashing out. She called me selfish and immature. My brother's text was shorter but equally harsh. He said what I'd done was unforgivable and I shouldn't expect to be welcome at any future family events. My younger sister didn't text at all. I didn't respond to either of them. Instead, I called Mom. This time, she answered on the first ring. She asked if we could meet for coffee. I agreed. We met at a small cafe near her house, one we used to go to when I was younger. Mom looked tired, older somehow, as if the events of the previous night had aged her. We sat across from each other, steaming cups between us, neither of us speaking for a long moment. Finally, Mom said she'd spent the evening talking to my siblings. She'd pieced together what really happened. She said she was disappointed, not just in them, but in herself for not seeing how bad things had gotten between us. She apologized for believing their lie about me being too busy. She said she should have reached out to me directly. I told her it wasn't her fault. I explained how isolated I'd felt over the past 2 years, how every exclusion had chipped away at my sense of belonging. I admitted that what I'd done was drastic, but I'd reached a breaking point. I was tired of being treated like I didn't matter. Mom reached across the table and took my hand. She said she understood, even if she didn't agree with how I'd handled it. She said the party had been a disaster. Guests showed up to a half-decorated venue with no food and no clear explanation. She'd ended up taking a small group to a nearby restaurant. But the surprise was ruined, and the celebration felt hollow. I felt the guilt return, heavier this time. I asked if she hated me for it. She squeezed my hand and said she could never hate me. She said she was hurt and confused, but she understood why I'd felt like I had no other choice. Then she said something that caught me off guard. She told me my siblings had been cruel, and she'd told them so. She'd confronted them about the lie, about excluding me, about the close family comment. According to her, my older sister had tried to justify it by saying they wanted an intimate gathering without drama, as if my presence automatically meant drama. My brother had doubled down, saying I'd proven their point by canceling the venue. My younger sister had stayed quiet. Mom said she'd told them they were wrong. She said family wasn't something you could curate and edit based on convenience. She'd apparently gotten angrier than I'd seen her in years, telling them that if they couldn't treat me with respect, they shouldn't expect her to participate in their events either. I didn't know what to say. Part of me felt vindicated. Part of me felt worse. Update 2. 2 weeks passed before I heard from any of my siblings again. Life went on. I worked my jobs, came home to my apartment, tried not to obsess over what had happened. But it was always there, lurking in the back of my mind. Then my younger sister called. She asked if we could talk, just the two of us. Her voice was different from the last time I'd heard it. Softer, less certain. I agreed to meet her for lunch. She looked nervous when I arrived at the restaurant, picking at her napkin and avoiding eye contact. We ordered food and made stilted small talk until finally, she just came out with it. She apologized. She said she'd gone along with the exclusion because she didn't want to rock the boat with our older siblings, but she'd known it was wrong. She admitted that the close family comment had made her uncomfortable the moment it was said, but she'd stayed silent. She called herself a coward. I asked her why they'd decided to exclude me in the first place. She hesitated, then said it wasn't really about me. According to her, our older sister had pushed for it, saying Mom's party should be elegant and sophisticated, and she was worried I'd show up in work boots and derail the vibe they were going for. Our brother had agreed, adding that I never seemed comfortable at family events anyway, so maybe I'd prefer not to come. My younger sister said she'd suggested inviting me, but she'd been outvoted and eventually gave in. I sat there absorbing this. They'd excluded me because they were embarrassed by me, because I didn't fit their image of what the family should look like. My younger sister said she realized how messed up it was, especially after seeing how Mom reacted. She said our older siblings were still angry with me, refusing to admit they'd done anything wrong. She said she couldn't change what happened, but she wanted me to know she was sorry and she wanted to do better. I appreciated the apology, but I told her it wasn't enough. I said I needed to see actual change, not just words. I needed to be included, treated like I mattered, not like an afterthought or an embarrassment. She nodded and said she understood. We finished lunch, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe one of my siblings actually saw me as a person. Mom started calling me more often after that. Weekly check-ins that turned into longer conversations about everything and nothing. She came to visit my apartment for the first time in years, admired the work I'd done on the renovations, asked genuine questions about my business. It felt like we were rebuilding something that had been broken for too long. My older sister and brother, though, remained silent. No apologies, no attempts to reach out. According to my younger sister, they'd convinced themselves that I was the villain in this story, that I'd overreacted and destroyed Mom's birthday out of spite. They'd rewritten the narrative to make themselves the victims. Update 3. 3 months after the canceled party, Mom decided to have a do-over celebration. She planned it herself this time. A casual backyard barbecue at her house with no surprises, no expensive venues, no hidden agendas. She made it clear that everyone was invited, including me, and anyone who had a problem with that could stay home. I almost didn't go. The thought of facing my older siblings after everything that had happened made my stomach twist. But Mom called me the night before and asked me to please be there. She said it was important to her. So I went. The backyard was decorated simply: string lights, paper lanterns, a folding table covered with food. About 20 people showed up, mostly close family and a few friends. My older sister and brother were there, standing together near the grill with forced smiles. My younger sister waved when she saw me, a genuine gesture that helped ease some of the tension. Mom made a point of greeting me warmly, hugging me tight, and introducing me to people as if there was nothing unusual about my presence. Her message was clear: I belonged there. The afternoon was awkward. My older siblings avoided me, making conversation with everyone else while pretending I didn't exist. At one point, my brother walked past me to grab a drink and didn't even make eye contact. It stung, but I'd expected it. What I didn't expect was Mom calling everyone together for a speech. She stood on her back porch, holding a glass of wine, and asked for everyone's attention. The yard went quiet. She thanked everyone for coming and said this was the birthday celebration she'd actually wanted: simple, genuine, surrounded by the people she loved. Then she looked directly at my older sister and brother and said she wanted to address something. She said family wasn't about perfection or keeping up appearances. It was about showing up for each other, especially when it was hard. She said she'd learned over the past few months that some of her children had lost sight of that, and it had hurt her deeply. The yard was dead silent. My older sister's face had gone pale. Mom continued, saying she'd raised us to treat each other with respect and kindness, and she was disappointed that some of us had forgotten that lesson. She said she loved all of her children equally, and if anyone couldn't accept that, they needed to reevaluate their priorities. Then she raised her glass and said she was grateful for the family members who showed up not just physically, but emotionally. She looked at me when she said it, and I felt something crack open inside my chest. People clapped awkwardly. The party resumed, but the energy had shifted. My older sister left early, barely saying goodbye. My brother stayed, but kept his distance. My younger sister came up to me later and said she was proud of Mom for speaking up. She said it was about time someone called them out. I drove home that night feeling lighter than I had in years. The situation wasn't resolved. My relationship with my older siblings was probably damaged beyond repair, but I'd been seen. Mom had stood up for me in a way that mattered. A few days later, I received an email from my older sister. It was formal, almost like a business correspondence. She said she'd been doing a lot of thinking, and she realized she'd handled the party situation poorly. She stopped short of a full apology, but she acknowledged that excluding me had been wrong. She said she hoped we could eventually move past this, but she understood if I needed time. I read it 3 times, looking for genuine remorse. It was there, buried under layers of pride and defensiveness, but it was there. I haven't responded yet. Maybe I will eventually. Or maybe I'll just let it sit, a bookmark in a chapter that doesn't need to be reread. My brother hasn't reached out at all. According to my younger sister, he still thinks I'm in the wrong. Some people can't admit when they've messed up, and I'm learning to accept that. What I did that day at the venue was extreme. I know that. I cost my family money and embarrassment, and I disrupted what was supposed to be a special celebration. But I also drew a line. I told my siblings that I wouldn't be invisible anymore, that there were consequences to treating me like I didn't matter. I don't regret it. Maybe that makes me petty. Maybe it makes me vindictive. Or maybe it just makes me human. Someone who finally stood up for himself after years of being pushed aside. Mom and I are closer now than we've been in years. My younger sister and I meet for lunch regularly. I've built a life I'm proud of, with or without my older siblings' approval. And honestly, that's enough.